joins us on Fridays. It's our good friend, Joe Fortunato. Film study professor Joe Fortunato joins us each and every Friday at this time. And boy, he's going down a road which is, I have to say, in our family, it has to be one of our 5 favorite movies that all of us sit around and laugh at each and every time. But I'm going to let Joe take it from there. My friend Joe Fortunato, what do you got for us today?
Well, good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to know you have a personal connection with your family with this one, because it's not a super famous movie, but it's a beloved one, I think, by a lot of people. And that is Gremlins from 1984. It was released June of 1984, directed by Joe Dante, written by the great Chris Columbus, and executive producer Steven Spielberg. This was during that 80s period where Spielberg was not directing, but producing a lot of great beloved movies like Gremlins and Goonies and Poltergeist. And we'll get to some of those another time. But it stars Hoyt Axton, John Louis, Key Luke, Corey Feldman, Phoebe Cates, Zach Galligan, and Howie Mandel as the voice of Gizmo, one of the creatures in the film. It was the 4th biggest grossing film of 1984. It only had a budget of $11 million, but by the end of its U.S. run, it ended up a success in the box office, earning $148 million. So $11 million to $148 million is a pretty good return on investment, as they say. It was set in the fictional Kingston Falls, which is the same set used for Back to the Future. Both movies were filmed on the Universal Studios backlot, and that sort of little courtyard in Kingston Falls or in Back to the Future has kind of become a famous movie landmark a lot of people recognize. The idea for this, or for the creatures, came from Chris Columbus when he was a New York University film student as a screenwriter. And, he lived in New York, and by day it was pleasant enough. But at night, he said, what sounded like a platoon of mice would come out, and he would hear them skidding around in the blackness, and it was really creepy, he said, and that gave him the idea for Gremlins. I already mentioned Howie Mandel as one of the voices, but a lot of other sort of famous voice actors, Frank Welker, Michael Winslow, were also some of the people that provided voices for the Mogwai and the Gremlins. I mentioned Chris Columbus as the screenwriter. He sold executive producer Steven Spielberg the script along with the screenplay for the Goonies, but his career, Columbus's, didn't really take off until the massive success of Home Alone, but he certainly had his hand in a number of very popular films over the years. Originally, the characters of Stripe and Gizmo were the same character. Now, this changed when Spielberg came on board, or when Spielberg insisted that one of the Gremlins be a good guy with whom the audiences could identify. So Joe Dante, the director, expresses that this decision was the reason why the film was so fondly remembered, because there was a rooting interest for the audience. The coloring of Gizmo, by the way, which has a white patch of fur around the right eye, was modeled after one of Spielberg's dogs. And it's always fun to see how these directors' dogs come into play. With Lucas using his dog as an inspiration for Indiana Jones and Chewbacca. But that's another story. Anyway, this was originally planned and scheduled for a Christmas release, because there is a Christmas theme to it. We could argue this is a Christmas movie like we do with Die Hard and other things. But it was actually rushed into production because Warner Brothers found that they didn't really have a major competition against Paramount's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Columbia's Ghostbusters, both of which were being released the same summer season. So they had to come up with something to kind of, to compete with those. And Gizmo, as I've already mentioned, he was the inspiration for the Furby, which, of course, many Gen Xers and other younger people know as $1 million selling mechanical stuffed animal in the late 1990s.
I think my mother still has a lot of those Furbies around her house.
I guess that would be more millennials, but anyway, we all remember it fondly.
Joe, I'm interested. I'm interested. When we talk about Gizmo and the other ones, I'm interested to hear you explain how they were able to get these these little animals to work, because the animal side of this story is as big as the movie.
Well, originally the attempt was to have monkeys play the Gremlins, but that was abandoned because the test monkey panicked when they made him wear the Gremlin head. In fact, they did this in Joe Dante's office, and the monkey went crazy, kind of tearing the office apart and defecating everywhere, if I can say that in the morning. Anyway, Dante screamed at the trainer to get the animal, and then asked the special effects guy, so puppets? And that's where they went with the animatronics. And they were there was no CGI, so all the Gremlins were animatronic, and they each cost between $30,000 and $40,000 at the time. And when everyone left the lot for the day, security would have everyone open the trunks of their cars to make sure no one was stealing any of them. One of the designer of the Gremlins, the special effects guy, Chris Wallace, he wanted the evil Stripe to rip a toy E.T. apart, but they weren't allowed to do that. So a little dig there. And one of the notes that the director Joe Dante and Spielberg got from the studio on seeing the first cut, that there were too many Gremlins. So Spielberg suggested cutting them all out and calling the movie People instead of Gremlins, of course being sarcastic. And Joe Dante says, look, I have no idea why this picture was successful. And he actually prefers Gremlins 2, the new batch, which was the sequel that came out in 1990. This movie, as well as, and probably more famously, but combined, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom are credited with inspiring the Motion Picture Association to create the PG-13 rating, which didn't exist prior to that, because many movies, including this one and Temple of Doom, people felt that they were too violent for a PG rating, but not quite violent enough for an R. So that was part of this history here. The gremlin exploding in the microwave, which is kind of a famous scene, had to be reshot after the first gremlin explosion was deemed too gory, which might have gotten an R rating. I find any exploding animal in a microwave pretty gory, so not really sure what that would have looked like beforehand. Tim Burton was considered to direct this film, but Spielberg decided against it because at the time, Burton had never directed a full feature-length film, and so he wasn't sure he was ready. We'll go a little into casting. There's not a lot here, but Phoebe Cates, maybe the biggest star of this film, recalls hearing that the studio had concerns that after her role in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, she might not be considered wholesome enough to play Kate in Gremlins. And Corey Feldman was added to the movie when Spielberg dropped his character from E.T. In both of those stories, he was the best friend of the boy who has the creature. So Corey Feldman got cut out of E.T. and as a favor, I guess, or a make good, Spielberg put him in this. Some of the people that were considered for the role of Billy: Judd Nelson, Emilio Estevez, Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Ralph Macchio, all were considered for that role. And one of the reasons, there's a lot of rules for the Gremlins, as fans know. One of the reasons for the no bright lights rule was that at that time, Joe Dante and company really, couldn't get the special effects as good as they wanted to. So by keeping them in the dark, this kind of camouflaged the problem a little bit. So that's the rule of no bright lights around the Gremlins.
It's a really cool movie. As I opened it up, our family with our generations, we all love it, and I think it grows in popularity. I think, Joe, you described that really well, where it's got some edgy stuff to it. It's got some family stuff. It's got some humor to it. It's got a little bit of everything that I think, personally, at least with us, makes it a nice little family movie. And like you said, humor, the gory scene in the microwave and stuff, but good flick this morning, I think, with Gremlins.
Yeah, I agree. And before I wrap up, I just want to talk about a couple of things coming up.
Yeah.
As always, you can find some of this information, the details of this information that I'm talking about, at joefortunato.net. But we've got a couple of events coming up here right around the corner. In fact, this coming Monday and Tuesday, just after the weekend, I'm going to be doing an online Fortunato Film School of E.T., which we already referenced as having a connection to this movie. So that is going to be a two-parter, Monday and Tuesday. and that is online. And typically, this is a private event through ASU, and you have to pay, a course fee and all that kind of stuff. But they have graciously allowed me to invite our guests in for free. And the Zoom link and all the information is on my website, joefortunato.net. So if you haven't seen one or couldn't get down to one of our live events, or you're not local, this is a good opportunity to have some fun, learn about ET. That's Monday and Tuesday. And then also locally, coming up in just a couple of weeks, June 28th, I'm doing a lecture on the 50th anniversary of Jaws. We know that the Jaws 50th anniversary summer is here, and it's really rolling out. So in honor of that, I will be doing a lecture. This is not a screening, but a lecture at the Green Branch Library. And when I say lecture, it's more of a conversation. I don't want to sound too academic. We'll talk about the history of the film and why it's so celebrated today and that kind of stuff. That is June 28th at 11 a.m. And then I've got a couple more announcements I'm not going to talk about here today. We've got a couple of events scheduled on the horizon that I'm excited about, and I know you're excited about, Ray. Those are on the website, though, so if you're really curious, go to joefortunato.net, and you can get a little sneak peek of what we'll talk about in weeks to come.
Yeah, and Joe and I will be getting together again. We'll tease it right there and kind of leave it at that. It's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Joe, as always, my friend, thanks for carving out some time on your busy schedule for us for Friday mornings. Again, it's joefortunato.net. Check out his website, and Joe, we'll talk to you next Friday morning.
Okay, great. Look forward to it.
There you go. Joe Fortunato takes us to film school each and every Friday morning at this time.